Uncover 15 spine-chilling true horror stories, forbidden haunts that will haunt your sleep. Sarah felt a shiver crawl down her spine the moment she entered the modest house in Maplewood. She hoped it would be a fresh start for her and her kids, Lily and Max, after a year riddled with heartbreak. But as laughter echoed from the Johnsons' late-night gatherings next door, a sense of unease seeped into her bones. At first, it was just innocent curiosity. Who were these seemingly perfect neighbors? As the winter night stretched into eerie silence, the carefree sounds morphed into something chilling. Flickering lights danced behind their curtains, synchronized with bursts of laughter that felt increasingly sinister. "Did you hear that?" Lily whispered, her small frame trembling against Sarah's side. "It sounds like they're having a party again." It was hard to shake the feeling that something was off. Days passed into weeks, texts from an unknown number began appearing on Sarah's phone. "Keep the children close." Panic bubbled in her throat when local authorities brushed away her concerns like the fallen leaves outside, treating her like a paranoid mother. No one wanted to hear the whispers of danger nipping at their heels. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night had a weight to it when Sarah finally decided to investigate the Johnsons. Cloaked in shadows, she scanned the darkened yard, heart racing, feeling like prey in the lion's den. Then she saw them, a pair of shadowy figures slipping into the bushes, voices like gravel scraping against glass. Her chest tightened, she felt the cold dread pooling in her stomach. The more she pulled at the thread surrounding the Johnsons, the more entangled she became. Every online forum she browsed whispered of dark disappearances, grotesque secrets buried beneath Maplewood's manicured lawns. It was in the dead of night that things spiraled out of control. Max, awakened by a nightmare, whispered tales of the people beneath the light. What had invaded her son's mind? Frantic, Sarah dove back into her research, uncovering eerie folklore that spun tales of families who vanished like shadows, swallowed by the dull monotony of suburbia. Each flicker of her lights reminded her of those who lived before, fleeing after tales of distorted reflections and murmurs from the house's very walls pushed them toward the door, never looking back. That evening, she stumbled upon a hidden door in the basement, leading to a tiny, cramped room. Inside were photographs of former tenants, every last one marked with a date and their faces scratched out. Cold dread enveloped her like damp fog. She could feel it now, the heavy hand of terror tightening around her throat. Maplewood was a trap, its idyllic charm a mere mirage, and she could hear the whispers beckoning in the night. Just as she felt the brittle filament of hope begin to break, a horrifying scream echoed through the air, a sound that sent needles of ice spiraling down her spine. Time ceased as her heart lurched, before the fear cocooned her. The door behind her creaked ominously, and for a moment, everything stood still, waiting. Would they be next? Would Maplewood inevitably claim her family, too? All Sarah could do was stare into the now deepening shadows, chills creeping closer, heart pounding in terror as the darkness thickened around them. Sarah's breath quickened, each inhale laced with a combination of fear and disbelief. The scream hung in the air like a dark cloud, thick and suffocating. It felt too close, too personal, a desperate call that seemed to resonate from within the very walls that surrounded her. Craning her neck, she listened intently, her heart a drum against the stillness. "Mom!" came a shaky voice from behind her. It was Lily, her wide eyes reflecting a mix of fear and confusion. "What was that?" "I don't know, sweetheart." Sarah forced the words out, the reality of the situation crashing down. "Stay close to me." They huddled together as another wretched sound echoed, a pitiful whimper that didn't belong in the otherwise serene suburb. It pulled at Sarah, an anguished echo that set her nerves on fire. Clutching Lily's hand tightly, she turned back to the hidden door. Should she go back down into the bowels of their new home, or into the night that felt like it was brimming with horror? Then there it was again, a shuffling noise clawing at the silence. The hairs on her arms stood up. Something was moving outside, in the shadows, just beyond her line of sight. With a heavy heart, Sarah edged towards the window, parting the curtains slightly. Her neighborhood seemed unnaturally still. The Johnsons' house loomed ominously, grinning with malevolent intent. The flickering lights behind their windows cast grotesque shapes that danced and swayed in a horrible parody of joy. The laughter had turned, now a taunting sound that made her chest feel tight. "Mom, I don't like this," Max whispered, his small body shaking beside Sarah. "Neither do I, baby," she replied, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. Her mind raced through desperate options. "We need to get out of here. Right now." She shifted her gaze back to the door as the shuffling sound grew louder, closer. It was as though something was testing the boundaries, creeping into the space that should have felt safe. The thought of being trapped stifled her, an iron grip squeezing her throat. In a desperate attempt to push back the rising tide of panic, she glided back toward the basement door, hovering over the handle. Should she retreat or confront whatever lurked below? There was no answer. But as a cold gust of wind snaked through the slightly open window, she felt something else, a presence that filled the room. Then it happened. Suddenly, the front door burst open, slamming against the wall. The sound resonated like thunder, startling her and the kids. Sarah's heart raced as shadows spilled into the living room. She felt the urge to run, but her feet were glued to the ground. "Sarah!" A voice boomed, one she recognized, the Johnsons' patriarch, a seemingly friendly face turned ghostly in the dim light. "We need to talk." He stepped forward, and the darkness flickered, revealing the full weight of his expression. There was no warmth, no friendly facade, just a taut smile that crawled across his face like residual fear. "Come join us, we've been waiting for you." "Waiting?" she echoed, the grip on her children tightening. Before she could formulate a response, a flicker of movement caught her eye outside. More figures loomed in the yard, shadowy and ominous, as the once warm lights flickered erratically, giving life to the nightmares that had begun with every laugh on these cursed nights. All at once, the walls began to breathe, echoing her dread, whispering secrets she could never understand. Panic surged, clouding her instincts. She realized they were not safe in this house, not in this neighborhood. The Johnsons were waiting, and there was something sinister lurking behind their perfect smiles. As the figure continued to advance, gleeful yet predatory, Sarah turned back to her children. "We're leaving." But when she stole one last glance at the doorway, the darkness released a final warning, a wall of laughter that vibrated through her bones. She knew it was no coincidence the Johnsons weren't just neighbors. And they were not done with her yet. Would they ever escape the clutches of Maplewood, or was it too late? "Get behind me!" Sarah shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. She pushed Lily and Max toward the far corner of the room, instinctively blocking their view of the nightmare lurking before them. The shadows thrummed with movement, barely contained, ready to erupt. "Please, leave us alone." Her voice trembled. The man, still grinning, stepped into the flickering light. His eyes appeared dark, two bottomless pits that absorbed the faint glow. There was a fleeting moment of doubt, where Sarah questioned if he was acting, if this was all a sick joke. But his grin deepened, and that doubt evaporated like mist in sunlight. "Alone?" he said, his tone almost playful, "but that's not how we play here in Maplewood. You're part of the family now." A thrumming noise echoed from outside, a chorus of whispers beckoning from the depths of the darkness. Sarah forced herself to breathe, to think of an escape route. They had to leave. "Lily, Max, stay close." Before she could move, another figure slinked into view. A woman, her hands clasped together, her eyes gleaming in a way that made Sarah's stomach churn. "It's too late for goodbyes," she cooed softly, "they've already chosen you." A knot twisted in Sarah's stomach. Chosen? What did that mean? Were they selecting their next victims? Mom! Max whimpered, his small body trembling against her leg. The panic radiating from him was palpable, and for a split second, she felt like the ground beneath them was shifting. She glanced back at the entrance, half tempted to flee into the unknown night, but the sight of more figures creeping down the street sent a chill down her spine. More neighbors, more mouths twisted into unnerving smiles. Laughter bubbled up, a chaotic harmony of sinister merriment filling the air, sucking the courage from her bones. How many were there? How deep did this darkness run? Listen, we can talk, she started, her voice lower now, desperate. You don't understand, the man interrupted, tilting his head like a predator sizing up its prey. This is not a conversation. A sudden crack echoed from the basement door. The shuffling grew louder, more pronounced. Something was trying to escape. Panic surged back, and Sarah's instinct screamed at her to get out to fight back, to protect her kids. Just then, an unexpected glimmer of hope flickered in the corner of her eye. A small wooden table stood against the wall, cluttered with old papers and half-burnt candles. If she could create a distraction. Lily, I need you to listen to me. When I tell you to run, you do it no matter what. Max's whimpers faded, his wide eyes boring into hers, filled with confusion and fear. She nodded, willing her trembling hands to be steady as she moved toward the table. Run to the door, and don't look back, okay? Okay, Mom, Lily echoed softly, the trust in her voice a dagger through Sarah's heart. The tension built, silence falling on the living room like fog. Now! Sarah shouted, sending the papers crumbling to the ground as she shoved the table with all her might, blocking their path. The laughter ceased, abruptly cut off. The shadows outside pressed closer, invading her home like an unwelcome tide. Don't you dare! The woman hissed, stepping toward Sarah, but in that moment, a shuffle echoed from the basement, the heavy footfalls of something unholy climbing toward the surface. With the noise came decisive weight. It swelled, a darkness mingled with anger as the door quaked beneath unmeasured force. The figures froze. No! You can't let it out! The man screamed, his facade of calmness slipping into terror. What is it? Sarah demanded, her pulse thundering in her ears, dread creeping back. She felt a cold sweat break out across her brow. But then she noticed an ethereal glow behind the basement door, a light glimmering desperately. Was it hope, or was it a lure? There was no time to think. Familiar shadows whispered a warning. Sarah turned to her children just as the basement door burst open, and whatever was inside was unleashed. The room erupted in chaos. Everything shifted, laughter morphed into a torrent of screams so profound that they could split the night. And when the dust settled, she had no idea who was left standing, but one thing was certain, Maplewood would never let them go. What horror awaited them just beyond that door. The moment the basement door cracked open, a surge of darkness spilled into the room, swirling like smoke around a fire. Sarah's heart raced, her breath hitching in her throat as a figure began to emerge, tall, hunched, drenched in shadows that obeyed no light. She barely had time to process the grotesque outline when it lunged, a tangle of limbs ending in razor-like fingers. Instinctively, she pushed Lily and Max farther behind her, their tiny bodies quaking against the wall. Stay back! Sarah hissed, but her voice was barely a whisper lost in the maelstrom of chaos. The man's grin vanished, replaced by a grimace of horror. Get it back! It can't be free! Panic laced his words as he stumbled back toward the door, colliding with the wall, desperate to hold back the tide of fear. The creature paused, its face indistinct, shrouded in a veil of darkness but its eyes glimmering like stars in the void. They drilled into Sarah a whisper of a promise and a threat all at once. It breathed heavy, hungry, filling the room with a stench of decay that clawed at her throat. Mom! Max's small voice shattered the moment, pure terror echoing in the air. The uncertainty of her children's safety spurred a new wave of determination within her. We have to fight, or we won't survive. Lily's fingers grasped Sarah's pant leg, a fragile hold on a sinking ship. "I'm scared," she whined, voice breaking as tears streamed down her cheeks. "No. No crying. We need to act." Sarah snapped, her voice stronger than she felt. Time spread thin, wrapped in desperation, as the creature shifted forward, drawing nearer, its breath hot and rancid. Behind her, the sounds of the figures outside grew frenzied, laughter intermingling with horrified cries. They knew. They were drawn to the creature now unleashed upon them. The walls vibrated with their anticipation, an audience reveling in the macabre drama unfolding. In a frenzy, Sarah felt for anything her fingers brushed against the edge of a candleholder, heavy and solid. The moment before she lifted it felt like an eternity. Heart pounding, she swung it toward the towering beast. A sickening crunch echoed as the metal struck hard against its side. The creature recoiled, screeching, its body writhing, revealing glimpses of spindly legs and a mouth full of jagged teeth. It stumbled, but the moment was fleeting before it lunged again, furious. "Run!" Sarah screamed, throwing the candleholder aside and pushing her children ahead. Laughter erupted from their neighbors, mingling with the horrifying sounds of the creature's fury. A cacophony of terror surrounded them, an awful symphony. The front door. It was just a few feet away, bathed in the promise of escape. With renewed determination, she grasped Lily's hand in one and Max's in the other, moving like an unleashed storm through the chaos. More figures blocked the door demanding, laughing. They swarmed in joyous madness, intent on blocking their exit. "Family," the grinning man called out, his eyes swirling with a frenzy that matched the shadows. "No. Not family." Sarah yelled, instinctively pushing her children behind her once more. "We're not part of you. We want to stay." A moment's clarity surged within the confusion. The creature withheld its next move, its attention flickering between the actors in this heinous play. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah lunged for the door again, her body colliding with the heavy wood, her shoulder slamming against it with a jarring thud that it cracked open slightly. Light flooded their tiny corner, promising deliverance. "Hold on!" she shouted, forcing the door wider, bracing against the euphoria of the openness. Just before they could step into the night, an unrelenting force shoved against her back, an overwhelming darkness pouring out of the house like the tides, eager to reclaim its prey. No. Not again. Her heart sank as they fell through the doorway, scrambling into the night under a sky that seemed to flicker ominously, a struggle between light and the stifling darkness that breathed down their necks. As they hit the ground, Sarah looked back one last time, dread pooling deep within her. The ghoulish figures receded just enough for the basement door to swing shut, the laughter a haunting echo against the night. "What now, Mommy?" Lily's voice trembled, the chill in the air echoing the uneasiness in her tone. Before Sarah could answer, a chilling breeze swept over them, and from the shadows, a chorus of laughter emerged once more. The night was far from over, Maplewood's secrets had only begun to unfold, and they still haunted the edges of their minds. "What do we do now?" Max asked, eyes wide with fear, with her breath shallow and eyes darting. Sarah whispered, "We run and hope it doesn't follow." But deep down, she sensed it. The unmistakable truth that they were still woven into the fabric of Maplewood. And that fate was lurking in the dark, watching and waiting for them to slip up. Where would they hide next? Would they ever escape the shadows? The night swallowed them whole, sprawling endlessly under the oppressive canopy of dark clouds. Sarah gripped her children's hands tightly, each heartbeat drumming a rhythm of dread in her ears. A clamor of footsteps echoed from behind, a comedic chorus of twisted excitement that felt far too close for comfort. "Faster, Mommy!" Lily whimpered, her small legs struggling to keep pace as they dashed across the grass. "Keep moving!" Sarah barked, urgency punctuating her voice. They sprinted onward, the world around her dissolving into a blur of shadows and uncertainty. In the distance, the trees loomed like sentinels, their limbs reaching out like skeletal fingers, beckoning, the laughter grew louder. Each cackle sent chills down her spine, threatening to pull them back into the grips of that terror, revealing the insidious truth of their pursuers. The figures they had escaped didn't shed their skin so easily. No, they were relentless, eager to reclaim what they believed belonged to them. "Mom, what if it comes after us?" Max panted, glancing back nervously. Sarah's pulse quickened. She shook her head, forcing the truth down. It can't find us if we keep running." Desperate, she led them through the bone-dry underbrush, stumbling as the branches whipped against them, tearing at skin and fabric. The scent of damp earth and rotten leaves filled her nostrils, a reminder of the grave nature surrounding them. The further they strayed from the house, though, the more the darkness seemed to cling to their backs, whispering regrets and fears. Suddenly, like falling prey to a snare, they burst into a clearing, a wide-open space marred by twisted undergrowth. At its center stood an old, decrepit gazebo, its structure warped like a gnarled hand grasping for help. The creaking wood promised no safety, yet offered a possibility of shelter. "Mom, the gazebo." Lily pointed, her face pale but eyes wide with a flicker of hope. "Hide," Sarah urged, pushing them toward the twisted pillars. They scrambled onto the aged slats, their breaths heavy with a mere moment's pause. But silence fell and stillness blanketed the clearing, stretching out into eternity. They sank into the shadows of the structure, hearts racing as Sarah coaxed them closer to her chest, shielding their quivering forms. She could feel the air shift, tension thickened and weighed down upon them like a coiling snake, ready to strike. Then, above the soft rustling of the leaves, they heard it. The figures were close, emerging from the tree lean like phantoms materializing from a nightmare. Their laughter peeled away the tense silence, now mingled with a sinister edge that slithered through Sarah's insides. "Where did they go? They can't hide forever." The grinning man from the night before spoke, his voice sour like curdled milk. "They're part of our family. They belong with us." "No," Sarah whispered fiercely, the fear cutting through the fog in her mind. Their voices, taunting and coaxing, seeped through her resolve. The air got colder, and for a fleeting second, she thought she heard the creature's heavy breath echo on the wind. It was somewhere nearby, lurking waiting. She could feel it in her bones as terror clawed at her throat, threatening to choke her. "Mommy," Max murmured, his small frame vibrating against hers. "Shoo!" Sarah hissed, when the laughter suddenly stopped. A heartbeat passed, then, they were there. Shadows danced at the edge of the clearing, flickering with an almost supernatural energy. The figures paused, their faces obscured by the deep shadows, silhouetted against the dim light of the moon peeking through the clouds. "Come out, little ones. We just want to play." The man stepped forward, and for an instant, Sarah saw the glint of the creature lurking behind him, all sharp angles and hunger. "Mommy," Lily whimpered again, tiny hands squeezing the wooden railings, her grip tightening like a vice. "Stay close," Sarah hissed, her heart thudding wildly, realizing their time was running out. The figures began their advance. She could see the grins stretching wider, the echoes of hunger pulsating in their laughter, clawing at her sanity. Then an idea sparked in her mind. "We should wait, let them come closer." "Why?" Max murmured, confusion knitting his brow. "Just trust me. Be ready to move. If they lunged, they might just catch the figures off guard." But deep down, the fear of losing herself to the darkness gnawed at her. A tense silence hung between them, woven tightly with desperate hope. And then, abruptly, the laughter returned, sending a shiver down Sarah's spine. What would happen if they ignored the ghosts of their past? In that moment, something stirred in the depths of the shadows, answering her question with a chilling truth. The haunting melody of their laughter echoed again, and a voice within the dark whispered, "Let us show them what family truly means." Sarah's resolve wavered as dread flooded her, but the choice hung before her now. How far would she go to protect her children? And would she discover the horrifying truth that Maplewood has kept hidden all along? As the figures loomed closer, Sarah felt the weight of fear wrapping around her like a vice. The laughter was a creeping melody, sweet yet sickening, as if they had all the time in the world. She pressed her children tighter against her, their small bodies trembling against her side. "Don't move," she whispered, her breath fogging in the sudden cold. The figures edged into the light, distorted smiles twisted into grotesque shapes, eyes glimmering with an unholy hunger. Each step resonated like a drumbeat in her heart. Mommy Lily's voice trembled, rising just above a whisper. "I'm scared." "I know, baby. We're going to be okay," Sarah lied, though her own heart raced with a primal instinct to flee. The man who led the group moved closer, his silhouette shifting like smoke against the moonlight. "We just want to play like a real family," he called, a false sincerity dripping from his words. The truth reverberated through Sarah's mind, a family was precisely what they craved, and they would stop at nothing to claim what was theirs. Suddenly, a cry pierced through the night air, breaking the hypnotic grip of the figures for just a moment. A flash of light glimmered from the tree-line, illuminating a path that felt impossibly distant. "This way!" a voice shouted. But whom could she trust, another threat or a fluke of her imagination? Panic clawed at her insides. "Mommy, they're coming!" Max whimpered, fear consuming his voice. The man raised his arms, beckoning with twisted fingers. Sarah's heart thundered as she gazed into her children's anxious faces. "We go when I say so, okay? Get ready." She focused on the advancing figures, searching desperately for any flaw, any hint of weakness. Her mind raced. Could they escape? She was teetering on the edge of truth and horror, every chilling laugh turning her insides to ice. With every second that passed, the voices grew louder, echoing like thunder in her ears. "Join us. You're part of this family now. You don't belong out there." But she felt it, a flicker of something darker lurking not just outside, but within herself. A dull itch of familiarity slid through her mind, taunting her with a notion she refused to entertain. That these twisted figures might know her somehow, as if they shared a history steeped in darkness. "Now!" she shouted, seizing the transient moment of hesitation as she took a deep breath. She pulled her children to their feet, a surprising strength coursing through her, the will to protect pushing every ounce of fear aside. They bolted from the gazebo, darting toward the trees, toward the flickering light in the distance. Behind them, the laughter twisted into a chorus of rage, and the figures surged forward, a living shadow chasing their every step. "You can't escape your past. You belong to us." The man howled, the words slashing through the veneer of escape that Sarah desperately grasped. Branches whipped against them, clawing at her skin, but she pushed through, every thud of her heart echoing against the pounding of feet behind. "Faster! We have to!" A flash of blinding light exploded in front of them, casting startling silhouettes of what lay ahead. The source flickered like a beacon in a nightmare, a dying fire surrounded by crumbling stones and silhouettes writhing in the glow. Shadows danced as a figure emerged from the flames, a vestige of comfort battling the storm of terror. "Wait! Over here!" It was a plea wrapped in desperation, but all her instincts screamed to keep moving. For a moment, hesitation fogged her thoughts. What if this was a trap? But another guttural shout from the figures pushed her forward. She gathered her children close, racing toward the flame. With each step, she could feel the thrum of danger lurking just behind. The air thickened, nightmares pouring from the dark encroaching around them, but just as they reached the firelight, the burst of warmth felt like the last glimmer before a storm. Sarah turned, breathless, ready to face what came next. "Stay close," she growled, eyes locked on the figures closing in. As soon as they slipped into the light, Sarah's heart dropped. The figure standing before them was all too familiar, eyes glinting in recognition. "Welcome back, Sarah," it said, a voice she had both feared and longed to hear. The shadows constricted, and in that instant, she realized there was nowhere left to run, nowhere to hide from the tangled past clawing its way into her present. The truth would be revealed, but at what cost? "Will you embrace your legacy?" The figure asked with a dark smile, as the laughter surged anew, this time vibrating with the promise of revelation and horror intertwined. The fire crackled angrily, sending sparks into the dark like fireflies in a twisted dance. Sarah stood frozen, the voice of the figure wrapping around her like barbed wire, cutting through her thoughts. It was as if time had collapsed, the laughter behind them melded with the crackling flames, forming a nightmarish symphony. Sarah! It beckoned her forward, the shadows writhing behind its form. You've returned to the heart of our family. Your true family. Max clutched her tightly, his small hand quaking against her side. Mommy, who is that? He whispered, his voice small and afraid. Her throat went dry. The figure stepped closer, the firelight casting grotesque shadows on its face. You don't remember me? It said, a teasing lilt in its tone. How could I forget the day you left us? The day you thought you could escape. I don't know you, Sarah stammered, but the words felt weak, as if her own memories were fighting to resurface, clawing at the edges of her mind like the figures lurking in the dark. Oh, but you do. I was your salvation when you were lost, it hissed, the smile morphing into a grimace. When you turned your back, it broke us. Another howl rang out in the night, echoing through the trees, and Sarah flinched. We need to move. She urged, tugging on her children. But they stood rooted, eyes wide, as entranced by this nightmarish reunion as she was. The figure's arms spread wide, inviting but chilling, a twisted figure of solace that sparked an inner conflict. Don't you see? They only want to bring you back home. To finish what we started. The laughter surged again, closer now. Shivers coursed through her spine. No. Please, she murmured, attempting to step back, to escape the pull of both the figure and the encroaching shadows. Mommy! Lily cried, her voice breaking Sarah's trance. I'm scared. Panic swelled. Sarah felt the urge to flee, wrestle with something deeper surging from within. Memories flashed, dark days that she had fought to stamp down. Visions of laughter and warmth. Images of time spent with these very figures, painted in shades of horror. They were calling to her, compelling her to abandon her present and embrace the past she had fought so hard to reject. Mommy, please! Max shouted. The figure leaned in closer, breath hot against Sarah's face. Join us, Sarah. Accept your legacy. Fight no more. You can be whole again. It was seductive, the promise of belonging, of finally being free of the constant fear. But she was torn. It wasn't just about her anymore, it was about her children, their innocence on the line. Darkness danced at the perimeter, hostile and ravenous. Just as Sarah opened her mouth to scream, a figure burst from the shadows. A rugged man, his clothes torn and face smeared with dirt, surged forward. Run! Don't listen! The figure in the firelight recoiled, glaring at the man with hatred. You dare intervene? You're too late. They belong to us now. In that moment, Sarah's instinct kicked in. Go! Run! She shouted, grabbing her children's hands and dragging them away from the fire, away from the beckoning darkness. Yet the shadows surged forward, laughter turning into raucous screams. She felt the chill of fingers graze her skin as they swamped the firelight, desperate to pull them back into their twisted embrace. Embrace your past. The figure shrieked, its voice mingling with the chaos swirling all around. Sarah ran, not knowing if they could escape or if the dark had already claimed them. The trees closed in, blurring against her vision like a living entity. They were running into the unknown, away from everything familiar, but in the depths of her mind, the questions lingered. Could they escape a legacy that clawed at their heels like the figures pursuing them? Would the truth shatter them or bind them forever? As they stumbled into the thicket, the chilling laughter faded, replaced with the thud of heartbeats echoing in the silence, but the knowledge lingered, there was no going back now. Who was that man? Lily asked breathlessly, filling the quiet. I don't know, Sarah replied. Though a whisper in the back of her mind already began to form a new, terrifying realization. The darkness behind them felt alive even as they pressed deeper into the thicket, and even the sound of their footsteps echoed with the knowledge that the chase was far from over. But then a flicker of light caught her eye, a new fire burning in the distance, one that felt ominous rather than inviting. "Keep moving," she urged, but dread pooled in her stomach. What if this wasn't safety? What if it was just a trap waiting for them to fall into its pit? The hairs on her arms stood on end as she hesitated, glancing back at her children who looked back at her, uncertainty plastered across their faces. Would they really find safety, or was the darkness set to claim them all? She felt the tug of fate uncoil behind her, and the question hung heavy in the air. What truth awaited them beyond the next flicker of fire? The flicker of light ahead pulsated like a heartbeat, an unholy glow that twisted her insides. Sarah tightened her grip on her children's hands as they darted deeper into the underbrush. Each step echoed in her mind, heavy and uncertain. The shadows behind them seemed to murmur, taunting her with unspoken threats. "Keep going, just a little further," she whispered, though her own voice trembled, betraying more fear than reassurance. Every rustle in the leaves felt like a predator on their heels. Lily and Max stumbled as they ran, the twigs tearing at their feet, but they pressed on, driven by the primal instinct to survive. Yet as they neared the flickering light, uncertainty gnawed at Sarah's mind. Whispered warnings from the figure lingered like a foul stench. "Mommy, what if it's another trap?" Max asked, his small voice quaking. The innocence in his tone only deepened her dread. "I don't know, baby. We'll find out together," she replied, forcing a calm she did not feel as they reached the edge of the clearing. The fire burned brightly, illuminating the area. But this was not the warmth of safety, it was a grotesque spectacle. In the middle of the clearing stood a circle of twisted figures, cloaked in darkness yet writhing like a mass of serpents, their faces obscured but their eyes glimmering with malice. The light revealed grimy remnants of offerings surrounding the fire, small trinkets, broken toys, and what looked like pieces of fabric, stained and faded. "Mommy, I don't like this place," Lily whimpered, her voice quaking with fear. "Me neither," Sarah muttered, the creeping sensations on her skin amplifying. It felt like the very air was thick with whispers, beckoning them closer. Just then, the figures turned in unison towards the children, eyes glowing like embers in the night. A chorus of voices rose, a sickening blend of laughter and wailing that pierced Sarah's heart. "Welcome, Sarah. Welcome back to your family. Run!" she screamed, pulling her kids away from the creeping figures, but the shadows around them thickened, swirling like a storm trying to swallow them whole. They sprinted to the other side of the clearing, the firelight now making the trees tremble as if the forest itself was alive, watching, waiting. Flashes of memory pricked at Sarah's mind, the laughter of a family she barely recognized, the warmth of a place that felt safe yet dangerous. She stumbled, the memories seeping in, almost inviting her to join the circle. "Not again," she whispered to herself, panting hard. From behind, the figures shrieked with joyous malevolence, a cacophony that reverberated in her skull. "Join us, Sarah. We need you." She darted into the brambles, branches slashing at her arms, scraping her skin raw. Max and Lily were right behind her. Every heartbeat thudded in her ears, drowning out their frightful panting. "We have to find a way out. We can't stop." In a moment of reckless hope, she tasted the air, searching for the way they came. But with every second spent running, the path felt less familiar, the woods closing in, altering with darkness. "I can't see," Max cried, tripping over roots, falling to the ground. "Get up. Please, get up." Sarah reached back to help her son. The firelight flickered ominously in the distance, as if mocking their efforts to escape. Lily tugged on Sarah's jacket, her terrified eyes now fully open, reflecting the fire's hue. "What if we can't find home again?" "Shoo! Don't say that," Sarah whispered fiercely. An icy realization dawned. What if home was the place they fled? What if the darkness followed them, and there was no escape from the legacy they carried? a voice, softer now, slipped through the trees, creeping into her thoughts. "Come back, you belong with us." The way ahead twisted into shadows, branches hanging low like sinister hands reaching to snatch them back into despair. Heart racing, Sarah tightened her resolve. She couldn't let them take her children. But as they turned, the forest shifted around them, the air growing thick with malevolence. "Mommy, I can't breathe," Max gasped, collapsing against her. The encroaching darkness pulsed, a living entity closing in. Suddenly, they burst through the underbrush, into an opening filled with unfamiliar buildings, silhouettes against the night sky. A forgotten town loomed ahead, derelict and lifeless, its windows blackened like eyes watching their approach. "Is this safe?" Lily whispered, fear coating her words. Without answering, Sarah turned, and behind them, the figures hesitated at the tree line, a mass of distorted shapes. The laughter grew faint but echoed a promise. "You can never leave us." As they stood on the edge of an unknown fate, primed for whatever awaited them in that ghost town, Sarah felt the pull of destiny, a tug back towards the warmth of the fire, and the terrifying family awaiting their return. A cry pierced the night, shattering their fragile silence. What awaited them in that darkened town, just beyond the edge of hope? The shadows of their past loomed ever closer. The town was silent, a graveyard of memories lost in time. Sarah's heart raced as she scanned the crumbling buildings, their fractured facades looming like specters. Wind whispered through shattered windows, echoing her fears. She pulled her children closer, each breath a desperate plea for safety. "Stay close," she instructed, her voice barely a murmur. Max's small hand trembled in hers. They moved cautiously down the main street, the ground littered with debris. Broken glass crunched beneath their feet like brittle bones. Shadows flickered just out of view, darting through the alleys between buildings. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every crumbling brick felt alive, every creak of the wood sent chills up her spine. "Mommy, I see something," Lily exclaimed, pointing to an abandoned store, its door ajar. The sign above read, "Welcome home." It felt like a sick joke. With no other option, they crept toward the door, its rusty hinges protesting like a wounded animal. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. Shelves lay overturned, items strewn about as if a violent storm had swept through. "Do you think it's safe?" Max's voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know. But we can't stay out here." Sarah's words faltered as she stepped further inside. The shadows seemed to stretch and pull, as if inviting them into the darkness. Suddenly, a crash echoed from behind them. Sarah spun around, heart pounding in her ears. Her breath caught in her throat. The door slammed shut with a deafening bang, plunging them into darkness. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, her voice cracking. "Stay calm, we'll find a way out." Sarah shouted back, though her voice trembled. The darkened store filled with a suffocating silence, broken only by the sound of her children's rapid breathing. The darkness felt heavy, wrapping around them like a shroud. Sarah lit her phone, the weak beam of light trembling as she aimed it into the shadows of the store. As the light flickered, glimpses of old photographs lined the walls, smiling faces staring back at them, their eyes wide and knowing. Unable to look away, Sarah felt a pull, as if the images were reaching for her. The laughter from those captured moments echoed in her mind, mingling with the laughter of the figures outside. "Mommy, let us go. I don't like it here." Max pleaded, tugging at her sleeve. "Okay, just a little longer," she whispered in response, guiding them away from the photos. The dark underbelly of the town was becoming suffocating, and the air swirled with something unnameable, heavy with the weight of despair. Just then, a voice emanated from the shadows, soft yet commanding. "Welcome back, Sarah." It's been so long. Every hair on her body stood on end. "Who are you?" she demanded, trying to sound braver than she felt. "Your family has been waiting for you." The darkness shifted, forming shapes, the figures from the clearing materializing within. Their faces now visible, grinning with ecstatic hunger. Join us, your children can be ours, run. She screamed as they surged forward, their eyes alight with insanity. She turned, dragging Lily and Max with her toward the back door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged through her veins. They were trapped. The sinister laughter grew, echoing all around them. You can't escape, you've always belonged to us. Just as Sarah felt the sharp pang of hopelessness sink into her chest, the floor beneath them creaked ominously. A trapdoor stood before them, slightly ajar, hinting at escape but wrapped in uncertainty. The shadows loomed ever closer, their intentions clear. "Mommy, what's happening?" Max cried, fear etched across his face. "Hold on tight. We're going down." With one last desperate pull, she yanked the door open. They tumbled into the darkness below, leaving the chaos above behind. As they fell, her heart raced with fear and uncertainty. What awaited them in the unknown below? Would it be freedom, or something far worse? As she landed hard on a cold, stone floor, Sarah could hear the voices from above, fading into ominous whispers. "You can never leave us." The darkness surrounded them, thick and choking. What evil lurked in the depths of the town? Would they ever see the light of day again? The silence enveloped them in a shroud of dread. Sarah pressed her palms against the chilled, rough surface beneath her, heart pounding like a drum. She forced herself to breathe, to summon the last flicker of hope that lingered in her chest. We're okay, she whispered, her voice barely carried through the suffocating darkness. "Mommy, where are we?" Lily's small voice trembled, cutting through the heavy air. "We're somewhere safe for now," she replied, though every word felt like a lie. She couldn't shake the feeling that even down here, they were still trapped in Maplewood's web. Max shivered beside her, tiny hands gripping her shirt as their surroundings slowly revealed themselves in her phone's weak light. Stone walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own, breathing in tandem with her rising panic. Suddenly, she caught sight of some stairs leading deeper into the abyss. "We have to keep moving," she urged, pulling Lily and Max to their feet. They needed to find a way out, away from the nightmare that loomed above. As they crept down the stairs, their footsteps echoed like the whispers of the damned, haunting yet strangely comforting in their rhythmic cadence. "Why do I feel like they know we're here?" Max murmured, his voice small and fragile. "Because they do," a voice croaked from the shadows, sending chills down Sarah's spine. A figure emerged, a gaunt woman with sunken eyes, framed by shadows that seemed to cling fervently to her pallid skin. "They always know. They're watching." "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, bringing her phone closer to dissect the darkness. "Someone who was like you once." The woman's face softened, filled with memories of fear and despair. "They lure you in with the promise of family, but it's a lie. You must fight, or they will claim you." "Claim me?" Sarah's brow furrowed, uncertainty clawing at her chest. "They're not just shadows, dear. They are hungry for souls, and they want your children to join their family. You must protect them." Lily whimpered, tightening her hold on Sarah's hand. "Mommy, I don't want to be part of their family." "Neither do I, sweetheart," Sarah assured, her resolve hardening. "And we won TB. "Then keep moving," the woman urged, eyes darting nervously to the narrow path ahead. "There's a way out, an old tunnel. But you must go now before they realize you're here." "How do we find it?" Sarah pressed, heart racing against the weight of her decisions. "Follow the wall until you reach the gap. Listen for the murmurs." The woman began to fade into the darkness, words a frail echo. "And whatever you do, don't look back. Run, let us go," Sarah urged, nudging the children forward. They shuffled along the stone walls, minds racing with dread and the promise of escape. Each step felt heavier, the knowledge that malevolent eyes might be observing their every move turned the dull ache of fear into sharp, jagged edges. Barely audible whispers filled the air. "Join us, join your family." Slivers of laughter crawled down Sarah's spine, making it difficult to focus. "No," she snapped, shaking her head as if to dispel the dark incantation clinging to her. Mommy? Lily's voice quivered, and Sarah could sense her sister's fear radiating off her like heat. What if they find us? They won tea, Sarah tried to sound confident. Keep moving, keep listening. As they reached the edge of the tunnel, the whispers became a cacophony, echoing from every direction. We're here, you can't hide here with us. The children gasped, glancing behind them, and growing restless. Don't stop. Keep moving. Sarah urged again, feeling the walls pulse like a heartbeat, urging her onward. Mommy, I can't. Max suddenly cried, falling to his knees. Max. Sarah spun around, freezing as a cold gust swept through the narrow gap. The shadows began to twist, revealing familiar faces gleaming with malicious delight. The figures from Maplewood, emerging from the darkness, closing in. Family, the man echoed, his grin wide and unsettling. We've missed you. No. Stay back. Sarah pushed the kids behind her, heart pounding furiously. Desperation surged through her veins, a primal instinct to protect her children rising like a colossal wave. In that moment, she remembered the woman's warning. She had to fight. She glanced back at her children, terror written all over their faces. I need you to trust me. I do, Mommy. Lily nodded, her voice shaky but filled with determination. Together. Sarah shouted, holding their hands tightly. On 3. 1, 2, 3. They bolted, breaking through the shadows, tearing down the tunnel. Behind them, the figures howled in rage, a cacophony of twisted laughter and anguished screams. Faster. Sarah urged. The darkness seemed to claw at their heels, eager to drag them back into their depths. At the end of the tunnel, slivers of moonlight flickered, illuminating the opening ahead like a beacon. There. She shouted, pushing them ahead into the light. Mommy, help. Max cried, stumbling as the ground beneath him started to tremble. Fight. Don't look back. Sarah screamed, their feet pounding against the ground, racing for freedom. Finally, Sarah felt the cool night air sweep over them, an embrace of fresh possibility. As they burst from the tunnel, the darkness shrieked behind them, a haunting farewell. They tumbled into the open space beyond, collapsing into the grass, wide-eyed with disbelief. The stars twinkled above, bright and unyielding, a safe haven in the night sky. We did it, Lily gasped, breathing heavily. Yeah. Max exclaimed, his tiny heart racing. We did. Her relief washed over them like a tidal wave, but uncertainty lingered. Maplewood might have let them go this time, but she felt the remnants of dark tendrils reaching for them in the air. Maplewood's legacy was never far behind, and its whispers echoed through her mind. You belong to us, but she would fight. For them, she would fight until her last breath. As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of gold, Sarah took a deep breath, resolute. Their path would be challenging, but they would carve a future free from the shadows of Maplewood. They would forge ahead, bound by love and an unyielding spirit, ready to face whatever came next, but she vowed this, while they might be free today, their survival awaited a new dawn, a promise written in the light. And she would never let them slip back into that darkness again. Listen up. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these riveting tales coming. Flood the comments section with your reactions and wild theories about this wild adventure. Don't wait even one more second. Instantaneously share this video with at least 5 friends who have to see this conclusion. Show your support and become part of this incredible community.